All right, so first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking this 30 minutes out of your busy day. My name is Kevin Gazzara. I'm a senior partner and one of the founders of Magna Leadership Solutions. I'll be your host today, and we have one of our senior associates, Tim, joining us. Say hi, Tim.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Glad to have you here. Look forward to spending some time with you today.
All right, and then we also have a guest with us, Greg Baker. Greg, you want to say hello to the participants?
Good day, all. Been working with Tim and Kevin over the last couple of years in another part of their business around DISC training, and we're also starting to dig into attrition and analyzing how we can improve our retention rate. So, something that just came out of our HR steering committee meeting with senior management about this topic. So, good timing.
Good. Well, thanks, Greg. Greg works for he's up in the Northwest and works for a large construction organization company. So to just jump right into it, what we want to talk about is I wanted to just show you the attrition calculator that we had developed in conjunction with Viatech consultants. We actually began this project years ago and then just recently redid it so that it's web friendly and also should be friendly for your mobile devices as well. And the intention here is that what we wanted to do is we wanted to give a tool to organizations such as Greg's or to any consultants also, so that you can talk about your value proposition that you are bringing to an organization, rather than just focusing specifically on costs and fees and so forth. We have found, working with our other clients as well as with that if you look at what it's costing you to kind of lose your good people, and many organizations really don't have a good handle for that. When we've met with them, we wanted to just give them a very simple tool that you can use for yourself or with your clients, or they can use on their own, to just give them an idea when they're looking at developing new programs, doing some people investment and so forth, what it really costs or what you really would save if you could even just save one really good person that you wanted to keep in your organization. And today I'm just going to show you how to do that. We're going to run through it, and there's two versions of the attrition calculator. And oh, by the way, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to jump in at any time. You can either do that on screen, or you can also do that through the chat room, okay? And Tim will be monitoring that for us while we're going through the quick presentation. And my hope is that you're going to see how easy it is to use this tool and that you will use it to help your organization or your business.
And Kevin, I'd also point out that it's not only for consultants, but also for internal folks that are trying to get a handle on the cost of attrition, so that they might put a game plan together to talk to their leadership. Because oftentimes this attrition is something that's simply underappreciated in terms of the impact it has on the organization. Great
point, Tim. Thanks for bringing that up. So Greg, what I'd like to do is we're going to show you the quick version, and you can see how long this is going to take. And what you'll notice up here is the totals for the attrition cost per employee per year, be the total attrition cost, calculate in real time as we go through the use of the tool. So Greg, let's start with you. Let's do the 30-second calculation. Give me an organization that you're currently focused on and the number of employees and what the job titles might be.
Sure. Inside of our organization, inside of our construction organization, our professionals, kind of superintendents and up into all of our professional ranks. We've got about 400 employees, and of those, about 75 of those are project engineers. So what we're focusing on is those 75 project engineers.
Okay.
to look at their attrition. In fact, that meeting I just came out of, we had a long conversation because that was our biggest, kind of the biggest number of folks we lost last year on a job role basis. And we
All right.
lost about 15% of those folks last year to either competitors or we laid them off for performance. And their average salary is about $75,000 per year. And this is, again, probably our younger engineers, most of those who left. So, but the average for that group is about that.
All right. So what you can see real quickly here is, so what that would say is based on an average calculation, and we'll go through the details in a moment, is that's probably cost you just about $26,000 per employee. And for those 15% that you lost, it's worth just about $300,000. So remember those two numbers. And using the calculator, if you click the bottom one, which says, the bottom note here, which says, click here to show additional calculator details, what it'll do is it will expand the information for you so that you can see the vacancy costs and staffing and training costs that are in there. But what I'm going to do with Greg is I'm going to scroll down, and normally the calculator is locked. Put in my access code. And what that should allow me to do, once this updates, it should allow me to get into the boxes. What's the average productivity of a normal employee with your organization?
Based on those conversations, we had about 80%.
All right, so we're good there. How about for once people determine that they're going to depart, what happens to their productivity, would you say?
We think it drops for, basically to about 50%.
To 50, all right. So I'm going to modify that in real time. And you'll start seeing the numbers at the top change a little bit. Okay, and then transition length of time to go through?
From the point they actually leave, we usually fill those roles in about 4 weeks because we usually have a good heads up and lead time on those people leaving.
Okay.
We have people in the pipeline, so we usually fill that within a month.
Great, thank you. And then the termination work for employees departing?
Typically for that role, we think it's about a full week's worth of work in terms of transition and closing down and exit interviews and similar to that.
Okay, so this is the work for the departing employee. How much that they have to go through with HR or their managers or transfer over. So 40 week, so forth, right? Okay, and then how about transition time for other employees, like with their managers or working customers or other employees that you are paying for?
We think for the most part, it's one-on-one interface with them. So we think pretty, overall, it's about a 1-to-1 ratio from their own time to the time somebody needs to pair up with them for transition or exit interviews.
Okay, so about 40 hours as well?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I know that those employees are probably, the salary's a little bit higher. Is that correct?
Yeah, for most part, they're usually probably working with their manager or with our HR folks. So we think that's closer to probably 90,000 when you average that together for those 40 hours people are spending with them.
All right, good. How about coverage time for the people once that is vacant? I think you had said 4. Is that still valid?
Yep, that's
good.
Correct.
All right. Do you use any recruiters?
We do from time to time. They're about 75,000 if we're using somebody internally. One of our roles for that.
All right, and then recruiting time?
I think that's
how long does it take to find someone?
Yeah, it's about right.
25, and then how many candidates do you usually go through?
Usually we end up with 3, kind of from that.
All right. What's it cost to screen them before you bring them in?
About an hour a piece to go through the first pass.
Okay, so
3
is good. And the HR, I think, is probably the same as your recruiter. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
yep.
75,000. And the people that interview them,
I think on the average, it'll be 100,000 when you take into account, upper managers and peers, because we like to have peers also interview them. So that's probably about right.
Okay. And how many interviews do you do?
Typically, in terms of per person,
Yes.
3. That 3 is good.
Right. And then how about the interview time per person?
Typically, we have an hour kind of an agenda we use with.
Let's make that 1. Do you pay for anything for them? Like meals or bring them in?
Yeah, I would say probably we're going to feed them lunch and feed somebody to eat with them. So that $50 is probably okay.
Good. All right. And then do you do any travel or is it all local?
Pretty much local for most of the people. We have regional offices and it's usually people locally. Occasionally there'll be that, but I'd say for the most part.
Okay. Any relocation bonus for them?
Sometimes there is. So I think 1,000 in there is an average is probably okay.
And do you do starting bonuses?
I take that back. Looking at that again, I'd say the relocation bonus rarely. So
okay.
There.
So let's make that 0.
Yeah, and the starting bonus, $1,000 on average.
All right.
Some not, some there are.
Okay. And then the last block of information is around training. So for training, formal training hours, things that they have to go through, safety, regulations, how many hours?
There's a basic kind of 3 days, so that 25 is about right.
Okay. And then how many students, when you do bring the people into the training, how many do you usually do it at a shot?
With the numbers, the way we hire and onboard people locally, I'd say we probably have an average of 3 people in each of our kind of startup groups for those 3 days.
Okay. And the person doing the training, what do you pay them?
Same as that HR. It's usually the HR rep who does the basic onboarding, $75,000.
All right. When you bring them in, how productive do you think they're going to be in the first 4 weeks you told me about?
Well, typically we're hiring folks with some experience. So I'd say they're at least 50% productive because they kind of know the general ropes of their role. It isn't something new to them or we wouldn't hire them.
Okay.
I think that's okay.
Okay. And then to kind of get them up to full speed where they're getting
back to that 80% that we put in the upper one about an average employee. I think it takes about a month. Hopefully we've hired people who latch on pretty quickly and then we do a month follow-up and see how they're doing.
Great. Okay. Local knowledge.
Yeah, both from who else is on the job site, plus we have a designated mentor. I'd say that's probably 25%.
All right.
Over that period.
They're probably
75.
75,000? Great.
Yeah, a lot of them are peers.
Okay. So what you can see is, in fact, what I'm going to do now that we have the ability to do is I can do a quick print screen here. And we do this with all of our clients.
And Kevin, while you're doing that, I would just point out that for people that were trying to create a change case for upper management, that we would walk through all of the details in terms of, what each of those cells mean, how you'd calculate those, so that as you're prompting your leader or your director for the kind of numbers that Greg is giving us, that you know exactly what's in that box and how it's calculated.
Exactly. So Greg and I had this discussion last week, so we worked through a lot of that to just make sure that this could go as quickly as possible. So I've done a print screen, and now I can send that information where you can see all of this, and you can use that to present to your client, or if you're using it internally, you can use it with your organization. Any questions on that? And then what we'd like to do is jump immediately into giving you some ideas of how you can save some of this money. So the new attrition costs here have dropped a reasonable amount because we pulled out some of the things like starting bonuses. We also, in Greg's organization, they accelerate their integration. And since they're hiring experienced people, that's happening much faster than what we'd see on a normal hire. So it's not quite as intense, although it's close to there's about $200,000 here of real money that you could save. So any questions before I jump to the next slide? And if not, Tim and I wanted to give you some ideas, and I'll ask Greg, you're welcome to jump in here whenever you'd like, is to give you some ideas of, so how can we go and save some of that money, right? So wanted to show you our attrition reduction improvement strategies. There's two focuses here. One is on pre-hire. What can you do before you hire the people? And the second group of recommendations will be with the post-hire. So in pre-hire, it's really focused on talent acquisition. And we have three levels here. Tim, I don't know if you want to jump in as...
So as a lifelong HR person, so the first place people typically start is they take a look at the job description, think about the skills that's necessary, and then create some behavioral interviewing questions to try to anticipate what kind of behaviors you might see. And that's good. Primary issue is that the candidates have learned how to handle behavioral interviewing, and so they're ready to tell you that they're pretty much great at everything. That's where it's good, but you can do better. And so the second thing in better is adding some assessments, and we like to use the DISC assessment because it tells us a little bit about the kind of behaviors that you can anticipate from a candidate. And so if you have a role that requires precision, perhaps a quality control or a cost analyst, that can tell you whether this person is good with that level of precision. Or perhaps you need somebody who's a little effervescent and bubbly. You need a barista at a Starbucks. Do they have any of that? Are they really outgoing? So adding that assessment to the normal interviewing where you're thinking about skills and experience and certifications and the kind of things that you might need gives you a better picture.
Yeah, and Tim, I just might add, this is Greg. We've been, as I said, we've been working with Kevin and Tim the last couple of years, and we've incorporated DISC in all of our professional 400 staff, and we're also using it, and just as Tim's describing it here too, with our top 3 candidates for a role to take a look at that. And it's not the deciding factor, but it's one of the factors we look at in terms of a fit for a particular role, and kind of are they a good cultural fit as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You're adding data points to give you a better shot at hiring somebody, because typically people are only about 50% effective just using standard interviewing techniques. And
if we go back to the attrition calculator, if we could just save just one of those people, that's a good $16,000, $17,000 investment for you instantly.
And then the best part is the job benchmarking process, which is a step up. It's actually a patented process that really examines the job, takes the job apart, thinks about the key accountabilities, and then gives you a much more precise definition in terms of DISC, and there's another values assessment that we do, and allows you to look at different candidates in terms of, do they have the human characteristics that are really required to excel at what the key accountabilities are for the role. So it's taking what's in better, making it a lot more precise.
And then there's the post-hire recommendations we'd have. So, and these all focus primarily around kind of leadership strategy, which is creating this kind of culture of engagement and accountability, right? That's one of the things that we found from working with lots of our clients, both here in the US as well as internationally, is that the more you can get your organization engaged and the more you can get people to hold each other accountable so that they do what they say, they create good goals and objectives, the better off you're going to be able to deliver performance. And also, the better you're going to be able to develop relationships with each other.
Yeah, and what we found is if you want to move your organization in that direction, you need to really have a strategy around how leaders will lead with clear expectations so that everybody's pushing that rock in the same direction. Everybody's trying to create that culture of accountability and doing it using similar techniques and tools.
The other thing that we do on the second bullet you'll see here is that is you really need to provide, you really need to start with the individual, right? With the focus is on the individual, very much kind of a servant leader mindset, where you're providing them insights both to themselves so that they know their strengths and weaknesses, as well as really giving opportunity to work with others and understanding others. And one of the great things that I think Greg has done with his organization is, you could talk about this a little bit, about the name tags on the outside of the offices, where they actually have their profiles so people know how to talk to them when they walk in the first time.
We've instituted that at all of our regional offices around the Northwest. And so, it's kind of like a second language for our folks now. And in some who have Spanish as well, it's their third language. They can kind of get a feel for what the profile of the person is based on the DISC assessment and kind of the 4 color codes. It's like Personalysis or Strength Finders. It's another version of it, but it's very visual. I'm looking out my door right now across the hall, and I can know going in how I should approach somebody. And we're also using it at our job sites as well, and with clients and the design team members.
I think it's a great practice, and glad to see that our clients are starting to use that. And the last thing is, from all of our research, we actually did a study for about 1,200 leaders around the world in 47 different countries. The number one element that comes up is that the better you can make people with their communication skills, the better you're going to be able to retain the people, keep them motivated and engaged. So next steps to try to keep us on time. If we looked at both all the pre-hire and the post-hire elements, we'd make some kind of recommendations for you. So one of the things that we'd like to let you know for next steps is you'll receive an invitation from us we're actually going to do some webinars on pre and post-hire strategies to kind of jump into the next level of details for that. And if you'd like to talk about any of the pre or post-hire recommendations, send an email to attrition@magnumleadership.com, or you can contact our office at 623-252-2389. And we can work with you.
And I have the chat function up so I can see if anybody has questions. But we would be happy to have you on the next webinar where we get a chance to dig in a little bit more on both these pre-hire and post-hire strategies, so that you can, if you identify an area that you think is a particular issue for you or is driving a lot of the attrition, then that's something that we'd be glad to focus on.
One of our big clients, just to let you know before we jump off here, we were able to go in and look at a call center type of environment. Tim can talk a little bit about that. And really, by focusing on doing some of the both pre-hire and the post-hire strategies, we're able to make a significant dent into, one, hiring better people so that the managers were significantly happier. But more importantly, keeping the good people, not only of the ones that they brought in, but by changing the environment, you could keep the ones that potentially would have been leaving.
Yeah, so we saw the turnover go from typical call center, right, close to 100% turnover, to less than 30%. And that was a big deal, not only for our costs, but also in servicing our clients. So when there aren't the call center people, then everything backs up, the timing gets bad, the questions don't get answered, the skills aren't as good. And we did something similar with the claims examiners in terms of we were just looking for the wrong people. And then we didn't realize it until we dug into it. So a couple of ways that other clients have found these techniques to be.
Any questions or parting words? Greg, anything?
This is right where we're at in our discussion with our executive management team, given we have a very low attrition rate, but these are the things that will help us save some money. So we're starting to dig into this and test it out ourselves.